Back everyone, I hope you're doing well. We have the rise of China, battle for survival. Now you know what this is. This is going to be the continuation of our China series. The rise of China continues. Glad you're here. Make sure that like button. Let's jump right into it. The other two videos are already posted on our channel, so if you haven't seen them, go see them. Let's go. This is the turning point. The war with Japan, which is the prelude to World War II.
China, 1937. Tensions have been rising on the border with Manchukuo, a puppet state run by an increasingly militaristic Japan. So far, China's nationalist leader, Chiang Kai-shek, has carefully avoided a major confrontation. His strategy has been to buy time, to eliminate his internal communist enemies first. But bowing to increasing anti-Japanese sentiment across China, he has concluded a truce with the communists. On the 7th of July, at the Marco Polo Bridge outside Peking, there's an argument over a missing Japanese soldier, and shots are fired.
It's about to go down. It's about to go down right there.
Within days, Japanese reinforcements flood the area. But this time, China is ready to push back. In a speech made 10 days after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, Chiang Kai-shek warns of the struggle ahead. Let our people fully understand the meaning of the limit of endurance.
That's powerful. The meaning.
People fully understand the meaning of the limit of endurance.
The limit of endurance. Meaning how far we can go.
And the scale of sacrifice implied. For once that stage is reached, we can only sacrifice and fight to the bitter end.
That's all you can do.
The national mood is summed up by a popular song, March of the Volunteers. In 1978, March of the Volunteers will become China's official national anthem.
That's cool. Seemed like a real like before and after. What a crowd too. What a crowd.
The fighting around Peking rapidly escalates into a full-scale invasion. Some historians consider this the moment World War II begins. Chiang Kai-shek's National Revolutionary Army, the NRA, is in the unusual position of receiving support from both the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. But it's
for now
not enough to hold back the Japanese Imperial Army. With superior tactics, modern equipment, and air superiority, they smash through Chinese defenses. Within 6 weeks, nearly 200,000 Japanese troops have occupied a broad swathe of northern China, including the old imperial capital, Peking.
That's a moral victory for Japan, and that's a moral loss. Like a devastating loss for China. And China's kind of like in a civil, not a civil war, but similar to a civil war, like an uprest. I think they're going to try to put those differences aside for a little bit from what our last video was. But I'm not sure. We'll have to see.
But it's in Shanghai that both sides will plunge into the abyss.
Is our fixed policy to resist to the last inch, to the last man. Chiang Kai-shek. Battle of Shanghai.
Shanghai is the largest city in China, and its commercial and cultural capital.
Do they have zero fighters at this point? Japan?
The heart of the city is the international settlement, established by Western imperial powers in the 19th century, and jointly run by 14 countries, including Japan. The Japanese have recently overtaken the British as the largest foreign presence in Shanghai, with 30,000 civilians, as well as 8,000 Marines and 32 naval vessels. Chiang Kai-shek sees an opportunity to divert the Japanese from their northern offensive, while also bringing the war to international attention.
Yeah, because all those international countries are within this area, so if you attack one, you attack all.
On the 13th of August, he orders Chinese forces to attack Japanese ships moored in Shanghai. The Japanese send reinforcements. Shanghai and the surrounding region become a major battlefront, drawing in 1 million troops.
1 million? This is crazy.
The city is devastated in fierce urban fighting, with tanks on the streets, poison gas attacks.
Poison gas? I thought that was outlawed by the Geneva Convention. What was the Geneva Convention? Not sure. I thought biological warfare was a war crime.
And air raids.
Chemical warfare.
The NRA suffers heavy losses, particularly to its elite German-trained divisions. In late October, it begins to withdraw. A single battalion is left behind to hold the Sihang warehouse. In desperate fighting, the Suicide Battalion holds out for 6 precious days. Buying time for other units to escape. Their sacrifice and the horrors of the battle occur directly under the gaze of foreign observers based in Shanghai's international settlement.
But what does the foreign observers do? Do they pick a side or do they stay out of it?
Where they are shielded from the worst of the fighting. Their images and reports quickly travel around the world and turn Western public opinion firmly against the Japanese. But what happens next will shock the world.
What happens next? That's what happened next. That's what happened next. That's what happens next. Nanking.
Japanese forces pursue the retreating NRA to the new nationalist capital, Nanking. After a ferocious 4-day battle, they enter the city on the 13th of December. The few Westerners inside the city form an international safety zone to shelter themselves and some of the local population. But most Chinese civilians are left to the mercy of the Japanese. For 6 weeks, Japanese soldiers go on the rampage, looting, torturing, raping, and murdering. The numbers are disputed, but between 50,000 and 300,000 civilians are killed. Around 30,000 Chinese prisoners of war are shot in mass executions. Others are decapitated, or buried alive, or used for bayonet practice. Bodies are piled up in the streets, burned, and dumped in the Yangtze River.
There's not much I could say about that. You guys have probably heard about that a long time before this video came out. It's horrendous.
The International Safety Zone is managed by German businessman and Nazi supporter John Rabe. He is appalled by the violence and hopes Hitler will intervene to stop the Japanese.
An unusual call.
Instead, the fall of Nanking convinces the Nazis that Japan is the stronger partner, and Germany cuts off its military support to China.
And then also there might be some future looking into like how do we combat the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union is the biggest threat for Hitler, and it's not even close. You know, with the resources and the territory and the army and all that, they do have the non-aggression with Russia or Soviet Union. We'll say Soviet Union. They do have a non-aggression with them, but they might be also peering into the future with Japan and squeezing the right side of the Soviet Union as well as they squeeze the left side. Could be. We don't know.
The rape of Nanking appalls the world. It is condemned by the USA and League of Nations, the international body dedicated to maintaining world peace. But their words are not backed up by action.
Yeah, because there's not like a United Nations or a NATO, right? Do the League of Nations, and this could be just my ignorance, does the League of Nations have like the same foothold as like a NATO does, like with Article 5? If so, let me know. I'm not sure.
Atrocities become a feature of the Japanese war against China.
You got the Bataan Death March too, so ton.
The systematic use of rape as a weapon of war. Forced prostitution on a massive scale. And the use of chemical and biological weapons on civilians and prisoners of war, which killed many thousands.
Crazy. So there's a two-front war, the North and then Shanghai.
The Japanese army's next objective is Wuhan. There is a rare Chinese victory at the Battle of Taiyuan, but it is not enough to halt the Japanese. Chiang Kai-shek's government makes a desperate and fateful decision. The order is given to breach dikes holding back the Yellow River at Hua.
This right here, it's gonna flood and it's gonna harm so many civilians. And like I said, always, like war, of course it hurts people on both sides, but it doesn't hurt anyone as much as the civilians, the people just living their regular normal lives. War is just such an atrocious thing.
The hope is that the floods will stop the Japanese army in its tracks. In early June, the floodwaters of the Yellow River surge south and east across the densely populated North China Plain. There has been no advance warning to the villages and towns in its path. The consequences are catastrophic. Farmland and entire villages are submerged. 500,000 civilians perish. 5 million are made homeless. The loss,
which we can't track how, you know, those lives turned out. The people that were homeless, we don't even know if they, you know, because of no home and instability, they could have wound up in a situation where it led them to death, which is deflating the overall numbers, which is probably conservative.
of farmland will cause famine and hardship for years to come. One of the greatest man-made disasters in history, committed by the Chinese government against its own people.
Yeah. Not a lot of oversight. What was the pros and cons to that?
The floods failed to stop the Japanese, who merely bypassed the affected areas. By the time Chinese and Japanese forces clash near Wuhan, there are nearly 2 million men engaged. The battle for the city is hard fought, with heavy losses on both sides. But once again, Japanese air power and tactics, alongside the widespread use of poison gas, prove decisive.
It's a dirty war.
The city falls after 4 months. The nationalist government retreats 500 miles further inland, to Chongqing, in the western province of Sichuan. The Japanese now occupy China's largest cities and install a new puppet government in Nanking. But despite its victories, the Japanese army is too exhausted to land another major blow. The war enters a stalemate. Historians label this conflict the Second Sino-Japanese War. The Chinese call it the War of Resistance. But it is about to become a crucial front in a world war.
As the rising sun melts thinly frozen ice, so the Japanese army is overcoming Chinese troops. Rangroko Hata. World War II.
By 1939, China's only major foreign backer is the Soviet Union.
For now.
It provides crucial supplies, and its pilots and aircraft make up most of the nationalist air force. The Soviets are fighting their own war against Japan, a widely forgotten conflict on Russia's far eastern frontier.
Oh, so we even got troops, USSR troops in Mongolia. By the way, Mongolia is Mongolia a province of China at this point? I'm not sure.
On Russia's far eastern frontier. But that summer, with war looming in Europe, Stalin makes a truce with Japan. It is signed on the 15th of September. 2 days later, Soviet troops invade Poland.
Alongside Germany.
As allies of Nazi Germany.
For now.
Despite losing its major foreign ally, China fights on against the Japanese occupation. Chongqing becomes a nationalist redoubt, pummeled by more than 200 Japanese air raids. While in northern China, communists carry out large-scale guerrilla attacks on the Japanese. But all cooperation between communists and nationalists has once more been broken off. The nationalists now receive foreign arms and supplies via French Indochina,
which was Vietnam, basically.
Today, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos.
Yeah.
So in 1940, Japan occupies French Indochina to cut the link.
Has this become the domino effect?
But this fresh act of Japanese imperialism alarms the Western powers.
Yeah, we got the American Philippines, we got kind of like Pacific Islands are not shown. You got the United Kingdom in Burma, Malaysia, Hong Kong, which is there. Then you got India, which is before the partition. So you got Bangladesh right there, Calcutta, and India itself. So like you got to you were testing the West here.
Whose Southeast Asian colonies are now within range of Japanese forces.
1941. It'll be at the end of 1941 when we the United States gets involved. But until then, it's going to be a continuous pummel of this region.
US, Britain, and the Dutch impose an oil embargo on Japan.
That's the catalyst.
Which threatens to cripple its economy and its war effort in China. The Western powers hope Japan will back down. But in Tokyo, the decision is taken to gamble on war.
They really thought they were going to take on the whole world.
In December 1941, the Japanese launch a surprise attack on the US naval base at Pearl Harbor.
Which, I mean, I don't know I'm sorry for pausing so much, but anyway, which I don't know if he's going to speak on. We're going to probably do some series of Pearl Harbor by itself, which was an ultimate failure, by the way, to attack Pearl Harbor, because you did not accomplish your mission, which was to destroy the Pacific Fleet, which was on training exercises, I believe, outside somewhere. Can't remember where they were, but they did not do what they wanted. They were looking for the carriers. The carriers were not really, I think there might have been one carrier or something like that, but the carriers were not present like they thought they would have. They wanted to cripple the Pacific Fleet, because if America doesn't have a Pacific Fleet, I don't know what's going to happen. Don't know what's going to happen.
In Hawaii. They simultaneously bomb US and British bases across Southeast Asia. In a series of rapid, bold advances, the Japanese capture British colonies including Hong Kong and Singapore, the Philippines, and the oil-rich Dutch East Indies.
All the way to the footsteps of Australia.
But Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor has woken a sleeping giant. Within a year, US factories are turning out more vehicles, ships, and aircraft than all the other combatant powers put together. China will be one beneficiary, receiving more than $1.5 billion worth of armaments as part of the US Lend-Lease program.
Why would you do this, Japan? Like, I guess they feel like they were cornered, but such a horrendous lack of judgment here, because now the entire West is going to back your enemy.
When the Japanese take Burma, supplies have to be flown into China from India, a perilous route over the Himalayas, known to US pilots as the Hump.
It's risky too, that airspace. Crazy footage.
Chiang Kai-shek also receives a new chief military advisor, the famous,
that looks like, yeah, that's American,
acerbic US General Vinegar Joe Stilwell. Stilwell regards Chiang as a stubborn, ignorant, prejudiced, and conceited despot.
Dang.
The loathing is mutual. Chiang, like many, finds Stilwell's arrogant and overbearing manner hard to stomach. Further aid comes in the form of Major General Claire Chennault's famous Flying Tigers. This elite squadron of American volunteers has remarkable success against the Japanese Air Force.
That's a crazy KD ratio right there.
As the war goes on, more US air units arrive in China, leading to the construction of several US air bases. China is now one of the 4 major Allied powers, alongside the US, Britain, and Soviet Union. In November 1943, Chiang travels to Cairo, Egypt, to attend a conference with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and US President Franklin Roosevelt.
I don't know too much about this conference.
Chinese resistance is tying down nearly 1 million Japanese soldiers, and they assure Chiang of increased support, though in reality, neither sees China as a priority.
I mean, look, they're dealing with Hitler, so...
Yet help is desperately needed. What remains of the Chinese economy is collapsing, with rampant inflation, corruption, and a devastated industrial sector. The nationalist government is struggling to pay its soldiers, who desert in growing numbers. Just as Japan is preparing to launch its largest operation of the war.
They're going to invade the rest of China. Crazy. In this war, China is losing all the battles, but China is on the winning side. Meaning China is on the West and the Allies' side in this capacity. But they are losing all the battles. They're not being they're not being paid attention to compared to the West. For now. This is 1941. We're in 43 at this point in this episode. We're in 44. Operation Ichigo.
April 1944. Japan is on the back foot against the Allies in the Pacific. It hopes to salvage the situation with a massive offensive in China to link up northern China with Indochina and destroy US airfields in the south that are used to bomb Japan. The codename is Operation Ichigo. Weakened Chinese forces break under the onslaught. Several US air bases are taken. And
so they were successful.
Connection between North and South is established by October. Once more, the Chinese military suffers enormous losses. Defeat is another blow to Chiang's reputation. But when Stilwell demands that he be put in direct command of all Chinese forces,
I don't think that's gonna go over too well. Even though I think a joint command would be more suited. Is that what they're currently doing? Or is it just Chiang Shek?
Chiang gets him replaced.
Oh.
Yet US faith in Chiang is fraying. Some contrast nationalist corruption and incompetence with the success of the Chinese communists.
And we haven't talked too much about the Socialist Party during this entire time, the Communist Party. They've kind of just been an afterthought.
Who continue to wage their guerrilla warfare campaign against the Japanese in the north. But the success of Operation Ichigo comes too late to save Japan. In the spring of 1945,
we're already in the spring of 1945. That means it's very close to being VE Day in Europe, meaning Victory of Europe, and now VJ Day, I think that's right, VJJ, is going to happen very soon. We're in 1945. We got the atom bombs the Manhattan Project is complete, or being completed as we talk, and China is about to have liberation.
The last major Japanese offensive in China is defeated, and Chinese troops counterattack.
Finally! Some pushback. Enola Gay.
US strategic bombing of Japan's home islands culminates in August 1945 with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Simultaneously, the Soviet Union invades Manchuria. Within a week, Emperor Hirohito announces Japan's unconditional surrender to the Allies. The Second World War is over. The death toll is staggering. Between 15 and 20 million Chinese lives are lost.
And most of those are civilians. Most of them. And for a fact, most of all the deaths in World War II are civilians. It's horrendous. War is horrendous.
Only the Soviet Union suffers more.
Yeah, like 40 million, 60 million? I can't remember. It's horrendous.
Then there is the multitude of wounded, the refugees, and the destitute. The country will have to undergo complete reconstruction.
Do you think without World War II that the CCP would have not survived? It created a power vacuum, I believe.
But who will lead it is still to be settled.
Mao. Hmm. 7 years earlier. The Civil War continues. You guys thought that this Civil War was over? We just had an intermission of World War II. Can you imagine your Civil War gets interrupted by World War II? God dang, the people of China, you guys endured so much. So much.
Japan's defeat leaves a vacuum in China, which both nationalists and communists rush to fill. From the Soviet Union, the communists receive Manchuria and captured Japanese weaponry, while the US and Britain fly nationalist forces into northern and eastern China. In an effort to prevent open conflict, Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong meet for US-sponsored talks in Chongqing.
Are they going to partition, or are they just going to say, okay, this is what we have?
The agreement they reach is short-lived. As Chiang Kai-shek remarks to his aides, the sky cannot have two suns. In 1946, civil war erupts.
Again.
As Chiang launches an assault on the communist-held north, led by his elite US-trained divisions. The nationalists make advances, taking Shanyang and the communists' wartime base in Yan'an. But the communists weather the storm, avoiding major battles and sticking to their wartime guerrilla tactics. And in rural areas, their program of land reform attracts many thousands of peasants to their cause. In contrast, the nationalists have been burnishing their reputation for incompetent and corrupt government. Chinese industry and trade have been devastated by war. But economic mismanagement adds to the misery, causing hyperinflation. And despite heavy backing from the US in loans and military supplies, the nationalists are rapidly losing support in both cities and rural areas.
Yeah, the people saw, like the people is what he's talking about. The people saw like the they really just want change. What has been their life? This is the same government that flooded and killed many thousands, or could be more, tens of thousands of their people, displaced them, handled World War II as effective as they could, but horrendously at the same time. Lost. They were not going to ever be a match for Imperial Japan with the technology and stuff. But then aligned themselves to Westerner countries, and did not align themselves with it's called the Nationalist Party, but I'm not sure they really were for the people. So a lot of people probably watch this video, and a lot of people probably have like a stigma against communism. I've had a stigma against communism, but the thing is, people won't change, and all they've known is war.
In 1947, General Lin Biao reorganizes communist forces into the People's Liberation Army, nearly 1 million strong.
That's a lot.
Mao decides this is the moment to abandon guerrilla tactics and take on the nationalists in open warfare.
So it's a real civil war now.
In a string of successful counter-offensives, the communists capture territory, weapons and supplies, and conscript deserters and prisoners into their ranks.
Deserters and prisoners of the other side.
The tide of war is shifting dramatically. In September 1948, the People's Liberation Army launches 3 major offensives. In the first, Lin Biao sweeps the nationalists out of Manchuria.
Huge.
The nationalists lose more than 400,000 men.
God dang! Now, 400,000 men could not just be deaths, it could be POWs.
Only 150,000 are able to escape south. The following month, 2 simultaneous campaigns lead to the capture of Tianjin.
And their siege in Peking.
And Zhuzhou.
This is quick. This is quick. Dang.
It is a disastrous winter for the nationalists, who suffer another 500,000 casualties and lose much of their best military equipment.
What do they do?
In just 4 months, the communists have won 3 major victories and driven their enemies from northern China.
This is like Russian guns, too.
In the southern cities, there is chaos and lawlessness as nationalist rule breaks down. That spring, the communist advance continues. In April, they take Nanking, and the following month, China's largest city, Shanghai.
Writing's on the wall.
On the 1st of October 1949, Mao Zedong, chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, stands before a packed Tiananmen Square in Peking,
Otherwise known as Beijing today.
and proclaims the founding of the People's Republic of China.
Ah. Interesting.
That winter, the last nationalist-held areas fall to communist forces. It's estimated more than 2 million soldiers were killed or wounded in the 4 years of China's civil war. Perhaps another 5 million civilians perish through fighting, famine, and disease. Chiang Kai-shek, alongside some 2 million nationalist troops and many refugees.
This is where we get to today. Taiwan and China, 2 different nations. China doesn't believe that. Taiwan believes that they are. It's an interesting. Their generations have passed now, but it's very, very interesting.
Retreats to Taiwan, one of the last territories still under nationalist control.
To this day.
Chiang Kai-shek will never return to mainland China. where Mao Zedong and the Communist Party are triumphant. Now, the work will begin to build a new China, from the wreckage of invasion and civil war.
Wow.
Do you want to watch
I don't know where we go from here. I don't know if Epic History is going to make another part of the series. I can't tell if this is the last one, because this is, you know, this kind of took, there's so much to say. There's so much I'm forgetting too, which is kind of making me sad. By the way, got the Book of China right there. I recommend that book for just about anyone. It kind of like really loads like the history of China up to this point. But the interesting part about this is the struggle. They were almost exterminated, extinct, the CCP. And then World War II creates this power vacuum, which eliminates so many obstacles for the CCP, that then within that power vacuum, they assert themselves. They become more political within the military, and the military grabs more conscripts, and they take land and territories, and they have significant strategic attacks at the end of this, which leads to a communist China. And then you get Taiwan being more or less like a own nation now of the National Party of China. You have two different crazy scenarios that could have played out. You had this one, and you have the opposite, where I don't know if the opposite would even have resulted in a Taiwan. At least in this timeline, you get a Taiwan. You do not get a Taiwan in the other scenario. You get annihilation, I believe. You would get extermination. So far, yeah. Rise of China. Epic history. I thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Remember, we have 2 other videos prior to this one that you should have caught by now. If not, go back and watch those. We have tons of videos on this channel. We react to history. Doesn't matter if it's Roman history, Chinese history, North American history. We do it all. And if you have some video suggestions, I implore you to leave some down below. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out and goodbye.